Hey guys, just real quick, I want to make a video going over some more diagnostics on the Promas. I am running the 150. I do have other videos on my YouTube. I got a playlist with all my other Proma videos. Got some setup stuff in there with the 150s, SDs. Be able to go over that. So right now, I've seen some other people on Facebook right now. They're having trouble with the torch lifting as it starts to cut, and they're running the 150 like I am. Just other things to go over. This other video I did show how we can go negative, which is really important. So once the torch probes, that's 0. So if you do have happen to probe on a high spot of the sheet, it probes and gets your 0, and you're going to be cutting over a spot that has a lower area, that's going to be below 0. So that's where having that negative is important there. Those changes I made, them just opening Notepad and then changing some of the coding on it. It's pretty simple to do. Definitely comes in handy if you're probing high, because if you don't have it on a negative, it'll never go below the probe level, which happens quite often if you do have some warp material. Another thing we'll start then is going into a test mode. There we go. So when we first start up the test, that 10 is showing us how much it's going to fluctuate the voltage. So it's going to run up 5 volts and down 5 volts. And so my stasis is set at 4. So that gives me an opening of 4 volts. And that's once that's set is when it's giving me the up and down signals. For this test, I did have it set on 150, but that was just for the previous cuts I was doing. So then from there, we're seeing up and down signals. So let's go for a few seconds. So currently we're down, so then we're lighting up torch down. And then we're now on torch up. So that tab is on the end of your run page under diagnostics at the top here. Shortcut is Alt-7. And then that's also coming in here under our ports current state. There's a few more things you can see. You can see the inputs as they come in. And then digitize, if you haven't gone over that one, that is your floating head switch, the micro switch right in the bottom there. So once that's, you can see right there, on and off. Emergency stop is on there. Let's see what else we got in there. We can turn on. Yeah, we're just watching that go up and down. So you can also watch this. So right now I do have the plasma off. But for when you're testing something like that, you're gonna want to watch very closely. So whenever this is on, it will be shooting a signal out, and it will be coming up in diagnostics. But with THC off, it shouldn't be making the corrections, and then it will make the corrections with it on. So here's under our other one here. So let's see, we got just run through a few things here. So on that one you can, if you're running under the settings page, just enable THC toggle. That's another way to turn on and off your THC. Not much that goes on. We go under configure and then ports and pins and inputs. Scroll down, and that's where your THC is going to be. These are typically, you'll go enable to green, and then active low, you're going to have those checked green as well. So if you're still having trouble, you don't need to go like unhooking the wires. You should be able to, the THC up or down, whatever you're having trouble with, you should be able to just switch that to an X, press OK, try that, see if that's what's going on. Yeah, it just, they're tricky sometimes if you don't, not 100% sure, but 99% of the time, Your problem is just because your voltage is set incorrectly. And that's something easy to come in here, and especially with the 150. So I can take, I'll just use this as a test right here. The other day I was cutting out some circles, and that's where you don't even have to know what the setting is for the voltage. You can just do a test cut, run with it. I actually got this set up right now. 45 amp, standard consumables. I'm gonna load it in there. I had that one called washer. Okay. So I'm gonna shoot this down to 0. So what I'll do now is just 0 this part in, and then I'll run it. Okay, we got some room right there. So I should just show you how I even establish that, because there are base settings in here. Usually they're not right. The Promas, I don't know if there's something lost in translation. So I'm gonna go in here, I'll 0 it. I'll leave the THC off while I'm trying to establish my cut. So all that's gonna be is a circle. I'll press start, observe the voltage, and then wait for it to stabilize, and that'll be my new setting. So let's press start here. Everything's ready to go. Okay, so on that one, it leveled out at 159 and between 159 and 160. So just one of them things where I just ran it quick, not too bad. I usually cut 3/16, so a little bit higher setting. I do have the feed rate reduced on the circle just to try to get that better, so it is 60%. But if you're going to be cutting at that specific feed rate on a lot of parts, where you're going to be running 60% of what you typically would, the setting, my new setting would be 160 volts. I do know that when I am running at 100% feed rate, that will level off at 150. So if I'm running a lot of parts that were running at 100% feed rate, it's just going to stay at 150. And that's where I have it set right now, 150. But if I'm going to be cutting a bunch of these washers out, and I know I'm going to be cutting a lot at 60% feed rate to try to keep my cut quality up, that's where I'm going to be bumping it up to that 159, 160. So I hope that kind of helps clarify the setting there. There's two things that go into getting your height, and that is, well, so your cut height is going to be based, your sensing, so your torch height controller is only monitoring voltage, but the voltage is a combination of amps and speed. So anytime on this part, if I increase the speed, if I want to maintain the same torch height, I have to lower the voltage. It's an inverse kind of equation there. But if I increase my amps and increase my speed, I'm probably don't even need to change the voltage setting at all. I have a lot of these settings that run at 100. Just for instance, I mean, my setting won't be the same as yours, but it just likes to run at 150 volts. A lot of different settings. So what I like to do is keep my since this is it's a Premier, it's a cheap table. To get good quality corners, get best cuts, you're gonna have to keep it underneath 140 inches a minute to get the best results. I know some people will argue that they can cut 300 inches a minute on a Premier. That's only if you're running straight. I mean, you cannot have enough acceleration with the small motors. The bearing on tube setup is just not rigid enough to handle hard acceleration. So realistically on the table, you're only going to be able to do that. So what I like to do as I work backwards, I know I'm kind of speed limited around, the table's happy at 100 to 120 inches a minute. So what I'm doing is I am adjusting my amps then to keep that speed the same. So I'm cutting these at 3/16, 45 amps. I'm cutting at like 70 inches a minute at 100% feed rate. So because it's 70 inches a minute, it's plenty of what the table can handle for acceleration. So if I want to bump that up to closer to about 100, what I'll do is I'll jump that up to 65 or 85 amps. I do a lot of cutting, 3/16 quarter inch. I do a lot of cutting at 85 amps. Once I get a little bit heavier than that, 3/16 and half inch, all the way up to 3/4 and 1 inch, I'm cutting at 105 amps just because I have the machine capability. But I wouldn't be afraid to cut it. You can go thicker than that at 85 amps, even down to 65 amps. So you guys that are running 45 amp machines, you're going to be fine because you won't really be limiting yourself because of the table. Where you will run into trouble is once you get 16 gauge or lighter. You're going to have more dross because of it, but the table will be sharper and cleaner cuts, or cleaner edges, I should say it, even though you will have more cleanup on the backside. Once you get thinner than that, book settings start getting up into like that 300 range once you get to, 16 to 22 gauge, where there's a lot of parts you can cut out of 18 gauge, but you just got to remember you're going to have some cleanup to do because your table is just not going to be able to accelerate and get those higher speeds. But that's where you can, if you are going to go that thin, I would definitely recommend getting yourself some fine cut consumables. And they got the different cap on them, more of a rounded tip. So just try to, you guys with your Premieres, or if you got other cheap tables, just keep the speed down and you'll be happier in the end. Another thing I like to do is I have a few files out there that are a test. One of my tests is just a square, and that square has a circle inside of it. I should look in here if I got some other ones. My old junk bin. So what else I like to do is I have a hex. But when you're doing that kind of stuff, I'm able to get some pretty good edge quality out of this machine. Been happy with it. Going to the 105 has been nice. Yeah. But yeah, there's some test files that you can make yourself. One good one is a square with a diamond. You can do a hex with a circle on the inside. Another one is a square, and I'll just have straight lines. I'll do like 5 lines, and then if I don't know what cuts best for dross wise, or even for cut height, I'll do a different feed rate on each line, and that'll kind of help give me a baseline to get me started. So hope that helps you guys and gets you guys a little closer to being happy with your tables. Don't give up. You can do it.